Welcome back to episode number 11 of ECW on FX, and it's another one where we're just going straight into the show as we begin with a video package looking at the developing rivalry between Loki and Rhino as the Warrior inserted himself in the title picture on the episode that followed Living Dangerously 2007. Key has been the first man to get the better of Rhino since the Dual Champion returned to ECW and left him laying in a position where he was not used to at all. Last week, Rhino looked to take Loki down with the help of Jerry Lynn, and with the absence of Key's partner Xavier, it was Rob Van Dam who had to save the former Hustle member. This was less a gesture of goodwill and more a continuation of Van Dam's own issues with the duo in the ring. Tonight, in the main event, Jerry Lynn and Rhino issued that challenge, and they will face Loki and his partner Xavier if Xavier can be cleared to compete for what promises to be a heated contest. As this rivalry continues, we're just looking to try and put over Loki. The commentators do the same. He has shown something that nobody else has shown, and that is an ability to take Rhino down. Whether he can do that again tonight and put himself at the front of the line for a title shot, we'll see in that main event. But we go into the first match straight away, Kevin Fertig and Tommy Dreamer. It's a wild brawl based match, I think, and it ends in a DQ. Tommy Dreamer winning the match by DQ. He's not coming out of it looking like a winner, let's say that. The match goes to the outside. The referees, of course, can now use their discretion to call a DQ. It's advised that they give a little bit of leeway, but when the ref tried to bring the match back into the ring, Kevin Fertig shoved him away. This was deemed to be crossing the line, and the referee disqualified Kevin Fertig. Before that though, Fertig was able to chokeslam Dreamer onto the steel guardrail, seriously hurting his back. The commentators then discuss the first DQ in ECW since the rule changed. Obviously not a popular decision, probably not getting a good reaction from the crowd, but they justify the referee's call. Despite his discretion, he laid his hands on an official, and that is one of the things that will not be tolerated. We're continuing to try and establish the law of this new ECW. There are DQs, there are countouts. We're not going to use them a lot, but it's something we're establishing now because it can be a key part of a storyline later, and we want that set up now so it doesn't just come out of the blue. So this, I thought, was a less important match, something that can extend the storyline. It's similar to the fact that we have 20-minute time limits on every match on ECW on FX. The logic being that it's 3 matches on every show. We've got a 60-minute show, so that's the limit that the matches can be. And maybe down the line, when we want to tell a story with a champion escaping with his title or something like that, the fact there is a 20-minute time limit can help us. So I just want to get over all these different things that we've got that can play into storylines later down the line. Kevin Fertig stands tall despite technically losing the match. He doesn't care. This is a man who previously was undefeated. He lost against Rob Van Dam and Rhino in his last 2 matches. He's now lost to Tommy Dreamer, so that streak really isn't a thing anymore. But it's not making him look weak because he's the one who leaves Dreamer down in severe back pain, and the heart and soul of ECW has to be helped to the back. The commentator's putting over. He's just unable to catch a break. They wonder when the tide will turn for Tommy Dreamer, and it's certainly not tonight. We then get an interview in the back, which is a good interview. Loki improvising well. Happy to see that because he's not always the best guy when it comes to his entertainment skills, and he stands alone in discussing tonight's match. He tells Jade that Jerry Lynn and Rhino walk around the place like they own it, and he is the man to bring them back down to earth. But that isn't why he's gone after Rhino. There's nothing personal about that. Instead, it's simple. He's been taking off heads for over a year now, but he hasn't been in that title conversation. 2 weeks ago, he forced himself into that conversation, and he is coming for the dual ECW champion. Xavier then walks into the shot, nodding his head at Loki. The first time we've seen him since he had that difficult night at Living Dangerously. He's back, he's ready to compete, and that's another good segment to promote the main event. We then get a in-ring segment, Teddy Hart leading the Stampede Bulldogs out from the back. The New Hart Foundation showing a very serious demeanour, a lot more serious than we've seen from them so far. The commentators discussed the attack of TJ Wilson and Harry Smith by the Hustle last week, as Teddy Hart was in the ring having competed in the main event. They were in the back, and that made them prime targets for the Havana Pitbulls and Homicide. Teddy spoke on behalf of the group, calling out the Hustle. I thought he'd probably have the better entertainment skills out of the 3, and they quickly answer the challenge. The 6 men exchange no more words, instead brawling throughout the building. So engrossed are they in each other that they eventually fight away from the ringside area, all in different directions. A completely chaotic scene which clears the way for the next match to take place. Teddy Hart struggling when going off script, and we're building the Hearts v the Hustle feud now, which I think can be a really good storyline, gives us a plethora of potential matches, and eventually will lead to a blow-off 6-man tag, which I can see potentially being a crazy pay-per-view match for us. We go into the second match of the night as promoted last week, Chuck Chuck Palumbo versus Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness picking up probably his best singles win since he came to ECW. Chuck Palumbo is a big guy, a tough guy. He puts in a good performance, a 53, but Nigel McGuinness quite far above that, showing why he's one of the most important people that we need to push and get towards that main event scene. Unfortunately, he doesn't click with William Regal. I'm going to persist with that for now, but it's something to keep in mind for the future. And McGuinness hits the jawbreaker lariat to pick up the victory over Palumbo. After the match, Nigel is joined by William Regal in the ring, and he sits on the rope inviting Little Guido to join them. Of course, McGuinness challenged Little Guido last week. Instead, Chuck Palumbo took the match. Guido makes it clear that there is no way that is happening. He's a bit of a coward, and as Chuck rolls out the ring, they back up away from Nigel McGuinness, just putting over how dangerous he is. Our next segment is a video package which looks back at the rivalry between CM Punk and Steve Corino, which has come to involve Allison Danger, the sister of Steve Corino and the girlfriend of CM Punk, and now Steve Corino's new girlfriend, Angel Williams. Recently, things have taken a Springer-esque turn, with shocks and twists at every corner. Over the next week, interviews will be conducted with CM Punk and Steve Corino, both of which will air next week on ECW on FX. And that is an absolutely excellent main event. I think the best of the ECW on FX era. It had good wrestling and decent reaction, and all four men delivering really good performances. Rhino, the pick of the bunch, with a 76. Again, he's doing really well on TV. Low-key with a very good performance as well. All four I cannot have any complaints about. Really pleased with that. And the finish comes when Rhino hits a gore to Xavier for the 1-2-3. Jerry Lynn doing a good job of neutralising Low-key, it has to be said. A steal the show match that does just that. It's a decisive finish. Really happy with that, and we should have no problems now with the final rating. The end segment sees Low-key down on the outside, having been hit with a big move from Jerry Lynn, and Xavier the victim of a gore. Nobody gets up from that move, and Rhino stands tall with a sense of order being restored as ECW on FX goes off the air. The last 2 weeks, Rhino has been bettered in one way or another, but before he could rest easy, Rob Van Dam came down and confronted Rhino, looking to pick a fight with the world champion. He obviously isn't happy about the finish of Living Dangerously, and he wants to get his revenge. RVD and Rhino look ready to start brawling when RVD is hit with a steel chair swung violently into the back of his head. That shot comes from Jerry Lynn. Lynn had recovered on the outside and took the opportunistic moment to take down his long-term rival, somebody he's had a couple of runs in since he returned to ECW. Rob Van Dam was out cold in the ring, not moving as blood began to pour from his head onto the canvas. A sinister look came across Jerry Lynn's face. He smirked at Rhino, who was impressed with the work of his associate. Jerry Lynn, once again, not only during the match but after the match, proving his worth to Rhino and taking Rob Van Dam out with a brutal, violent moment to end the show. And I've got no doubt, only a 64, that's slightly disappointing, but actually when I look at the other segments, there wasn't anything else that came anywhere close to that Jerry Lynn and Rhino v Low-key and Xavier main event. It is very encouraging though to see the likes of Low-key and Xavier in such good matches. Well, of course, they were helped by Rhino putting in a brilliant performance. The fact they can hold their own in those main events, again, only makes me very positive for the future of ECW. That's not even taking into account the fact that Nigel McGuinness put in another good performance and Bryan Danielson is only a couple of weeks away from recovery. Things are looking good and we'll see how that translates to a TV rating. I think that was a pretty good main event. And the show gets a 2.63, 1.978 million viewers, so that again is our best rating yet. The post pay-per-view episode had previously taken that record, but we're just building and building even more of an audience. That is absolutely brilliant to see. And there's an announcement coming next week that I think will get more eyes than ever on ECW, but in truth, the best way to get more buzz and more hype is to continue to put on matches of the quality of that main event.